Okay, next on the list. So we just finished up talking about events leading to cognitive psychology, and you can even see things in the book with artificial intelligence and information theory that this really became kind of popular in looking at the mind and so forth. And I expect you to outline that. Major assumptions in cognitive psychology. So the major assumptions in cognitive psychology. Assumption number one. We believe in cognitive psychology that mental processes exist and follow lawful, systematic processes. Mental processes exist and they follow laws. Why is this so important? Well, we wanted to basically say that the behaviorists said cognitive processes don't exist. We want to say they do. We really believe that mental processes exist and they follow laws. Now, why is that important? If they didn't follow laws, then it would be very hard to measure what's going on. So we think the mind and the way the mind works follows a lawful process. So we make that assumption in cognitive psychology. Number two, we can do chronometric analysis to understand these lawful relationships. Chronometric, chrono, like a watch, chrono. CHRONO, metric analysis to understand these lawful processes. So what do I mean by that? Well, let me give you a simple example of this. Let's say that I wrote the letters out DOG, and I asked you to say that word as quickly as you can. So I showed that word to you, and I recorded your reaction time to say dog. Let's say in another trial, I gave you another word, and I just showed it to you, and it was the word democracy. Which word would you respond faster to? Dog or democracy? Well, usually people say the word dog much more quickly. And why is that the case? Well, what a cognitive psychologist would do with this chronometric idea, they would say that your reaction time to the word dog is quicker because somewhere there up in your mind, when you look at that stimuli, you do the mental processes and get the memory for that, somewhere up there, your mind is allowing that to be accessed in a quicker way. So we do a lot of reaction time experiments. We believe that reaction time itself, to respond to stimuli, tells us something about how your mind is structured. Maybe another example will work as well. What if I gave you a sentence and I said, actually I'm not going to go into another example, but a chronometric analysis. We're going to do a lot of that in here. The idea is if somebody responds quicker to something, we can tell something about the structure of the mind from that. So we use reaction time to figure out stuff about these things we can't see. Remember what the behaviorist said? We can't see memory. We can't see problem solving, but we could use reaction time as an indicator, and that's what a cognitive psychologist believes. The final assumption, a cognitive psychologist believes that we can be active information processors. We can be active information processors. This is kind of an intentional one. We can choose to pay attention or not. In the real world of behaviorism, the person was just kind of this passive thing. Put a stimulus up, put a response up, give the reinforcement. There was no room for attention or no attention. It just wasn't part of the situation. So we in cognitive psychology think people can process things or not. They can be aware, they can show attention, pay attention, and we have to understand attentional variables. So these are the three assumptions of cognitive psychology. And as I said before, the fields of cognitive psychology tend to be problem solving. How do people cognitively do that? A behaviorist wouldn't study that. Attention, which you can see from the assumptions. Language, which was so big with Chomsky. And of course, memory. So the mnemonic palm. Last but not least, a few famous people in the history of cognitive psychology. Your book talks about these people as well, I think. Who are the famous people? Pages 6 and 7. Donder. Donder came up with this idea of studying how long it takes somebody to make a decision. And if you read those pages in the book, you can see that. The idea was if a light flashes and you press a key, you get the reaction time from that. But then in another situation, what was it if a light flashes? If it's this light, you hit this button. If it's that light, you hit that button. That you can actually do both of those experiments and figure out how long it takes somebody to make a decision. So it was kind of using what we call subtractive methodology to figure out how long it takes somebody to make a decision. And this is a chronometric analysis, using time to figure out something about mental processing. So we do this time stuff often in cognitive psychology. So we often use the output from this. So that is the idea of cognitive psychology. The other important person, Ebbinghaus. Ebbinghaus did a study, and you don't need to know all the details here, but it was a very simple memory study where he tried to memorize nonsense syllables and did this over the course of some days to see how much was remembered. So he really tried to be kind of scientific about studying memory when nobody was doing it way back when. So these are a couple of important people in the field of cognitive psychology. So in summary here, from these two acoustic, and there'll be YouTube videos, what I'd like you to do is basically go through, type out a nice summary, section by section. You can send me a draft if you wish. You get about 2 weeks to do this particular task, and hopefully this gives you the basics of cognitive psychology. Thank you.